Moving on to 10B, empowering the city manager and city attorney to evaluate discussion items before they come before the commission, authorize said individuals to reject the item with cause or refer the requester to appropriate venues rather than coming before the city commission for a period of 180 days. This request is by Commissioner Bolton, and you are being requested to keep this narrowly confined to the item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of years ago, I wanted to honor HOA presidents. And Harry Dressler, who was the mayor at the time, thought that the item was just crazy. And you were also the commissioner for District 2, Mayor. We were sitting in a workshop, and we discussed the issue at length. And Mayor Dressler says, we're not going to discuss this for another 6 months. And the commission agreed. So this has teeth. First item and this item definitely has teeth. It is a will of the commission. If it is a will of the commission to move this forward, I would like to see it move forward as well. Part of the problem is when I spoke with the city manager and the city attorney, they both said that their hands are tied. Their hands are tied. If somebody wants to bring an item before the city commission, they can. They have access to the agenda. And those items are just, in my opinion, are just terrible. I listened to residents. Mel from Kings Point came before us, spoke right here at these microphones, and he says, verbatim, these items are meant to embarrass city staff. I went home and I thought about it. And you know what? I didn't bring my items again. I've not brought up an item in a very long time. Not because I'm afraid of blogs. I'm not afraid of blogs. I don't have to pay for advertising on a blog for my residents to know who I am. I don't have to do that. I go to my residents and meet them at the door. I make sure that I program services that they can take advantage of. I meet them in the park every last Wednesday of the month. I call them. I check on them. When they have an issue, I respond to them. I worked with staff to make sure that there's a system where residents can directly submit their problems and staff see it and resolve it right away. So I don't have to pay for advertising. I don't have to pay for fluff. And quite frankly, good publicity or bad publicity, I'm all for it. You want to put me in a clown costume? Or you want to make me look like ancient Greece? Well, guess what? I'm now known because of them. And the residents who I represent know very well that's not who Commissioner Bolton is. He's a fighter for good government, and he's a fighter for the people. That's the Commissioner Bolton they know.
Commissioner Bolton, can you please make this about the item that you have versus a campaign stumping speech?
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, I could have brought an item asking the City Commission to sanction Commissioner Villalobos when he endorsed a candidate for Congress, Elvin Villalobos, wore his city shirt on Facebook with city logo.
Point of clarification, Commissioner Bolton, this is not about your topic here about what items should be brought before the commission and whether or not the city manager or city attorney should evaluate them. Please keep this to the topic at hand.
It is an anecdotally.
You don't need the anecdote.
Order. Mayor, it's already been 7 minutes since you first started speaking, by the way.
I have 2 minutes and
No,
10
you
seconds.
don't.
Only
You
because
actually
I
have
was
some
gracious
voting.
enough to do that when the clock wasn't running fully. Please, you have 2 minutes. Back to the topic at hand, not to the anecdotal stories. We don't need them. I think we're all very intelligent here, and we've got this.
That would have been an issue for the city manager or the city attorney. For me to bring an item, can I bring an item to be discussed by this body when I know very well that it's an elections issue? I don't. And quite frankly, Facebook still has the ad, and the Elections Commission or the OIG, I'm sure they're listening. They were invited to listen, perhaps. They can look that ad up, and they can see the violations. But did I want to embarrass my colleague?
Commissioner Bolton,
No,
back
I
to
didn't.
the topic at hand, please.
It is the topic at hand because we don't have standing. We don't have jurisdictional authority. And we
We're
need
on
to
item
give the
10B.
power, we need to give the power to the city manager and the city attorney, hold them accountable, that when any of us, any of us, bring an item that has no jurisdictional authority, the buck stops with them. The buck stops with the mayor and the attorney. Try that for 6 months. Not conveniently. Try that for 6 months. See if it works. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Placco.
Thank you. I would like to think if I go to my city manager or city attorney with some crazy idea, that they would say to me, "Are you sure you want to do this? Have you thought about the consequences of it, how this is going to play out, and what is your objective here?" I look to you for that. And if you need to be told you now have the power to do that, then so be it. But I would rely on both of you to steer me in a direction that I may need to be. We all need to at some point. We all need at some point someone to say to us, wait a minute, maybe that's not such a good idea. And because we certainly can't talk to each other about it, and I have come to you before and said, what do you think about this? So I understand your position has been the commission has the right to put anything on the agenda they want to. But I am going to trust your discretion now to decide what should be brought to this commission and what should not. If it's outside of the scope of our duties as it relates to the residents, it should not be brought here. Leave it outside the door. So I am willing to give that opportunity to both of you.
If I may, Mayor, I hear what the comments are. I think that at the beginning, I had said, I think to all of you at one point or another, the cliche, we can lead the horse to water, but sometimes we can't necessarily make the horse drink. And I think that's, we do talk to each of you when these items come up, and sometimes things change. But I hear what you're doing, what you're saying. I'm committed to doing that, to making sure we do that. I also think that based upon the agenda item and the way that the current regulations exist, I'm going to bring to you and probably after the hiatus an update to your rules of procedure for you all we'll bring it to you in a workshop. You all can take a look at them and because some of those things need to be in the form of an ordinance, and things need to be updated, and we'll do that.
Thank you, City Attorney. We're going to finish with our comments here on the dais.
That really is my comment. I just think we have to get a grip here, and we have to stop the nonsense. And I think you two may have to be the adults in the room and, ensure that we're not doing something that is going to make the commission as a whole look bad. When one of us looks bad, we all look bad. And you hear our residents say, you all are behaving badly. So I think we need to stop that. The residents are tired of it, and I'm tired of it too. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
To
Commissioner
you. Thank you,
Villalobos,
Mayor.
you're next.
Oh. What?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify what Commissioner Bolton means by this. Well, first, through the chair, city attorney and or city manager, don't you do this already in terms of evaluating discussion items that come before you when they're presented?
Yes, and we have those conversations with you all, some more than others, and sometimes you all will, the individual commissioners will call me on certain items and talk to me about things that they may desire to put on the agenda. But at the end of the day, after those conversations take place, the individual commissioners then actually submit their paperwork to have an agenda item placed on the agenda, and it gets processed through the manager's office, gets on the draft agenda, and then in many instances, not all the time, we all have, both the manager and myself will have follow-up communications with those particular commissioners who have submitted the agenda item request. And again, in some instances, those get modified, they get changed, in some instances they haven't.
Yeah, because I remember specifically having a discussion with the city manager during an agenda review on a draft agenda where a commissioner had an item on that to me didn't make sense, and by the time the agenda came out, it was no longer on the agenda. So I'm assuming that a discussion was had with the commissioner, and they were advised that it didn't make sense to keep that item on the agenda, or whatever the discussion was.
That's a fair summary.
City Manager.
Yes, I would just say I concur that those conversations do happen and sometimes the items are changed. We have been governed by the code as it is written right now. And from the outset, I have followed the directions of the city attorney. That said, the code says members of the city commission may submit items for placement on the agenda. All proposed agenda items shall be delivered to the city's clerk's office at a minimum of 6 days. These items shall be part of the meeting notice and part of the meeting agenda. So now that I'm hearing from all of you, it will be qualified to city business, which this doesn't have that qualification. So that is, we can do that, and I think the code has to change and the parameters need to be there. So if we say no and you don't like that answer, then you guys will bring it up as a body later on, I guess. So I'm happy to do that and contain it to city items, and it would make life easier for us too.
Okay, I guess that's something to consider. Is that, Commissioner Bolton, your idea? Did they properly summarize what you would like to see?
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Vice Mayor. That's it. I would really like that because, and that's why I put with, and that's why I put with cause, and the cause would be it's not city business. And so if we have an item that is city business, they can't tell us no.
Right.
It's with cause. And so we need to let them know, hey, do we have jurisdictional authority or not?
Okay. And Commissioner Villalobos, it sounded like you took offense to something that I said
Take
earlier.
offense to anything.
Okay, very good. Because I did not.
Harder, by the way.
Pardon me?
It bites harder.
I cannot hear you.
It bites harder.
What bites harder?
It just bites.
Gentlemen, let's just keep the item to our own opinions of whether or not 10B has any potential for moving forward.
I just want to make it clear that the statement I made earlier was not to offend the vice mayor or anyone in particular. Just as someone who is the son of immigrants that came from a non-democratic nation, I know that when the word strong is used, some people view it as a dictatorship based on where they come from. And I just want to make it clear that, which is why I asked the city attorney several times whether a strong mayor form of government is
This
dictator.
is not about this item, Commissioner Vice Mayor. If you had
I want to
problems
make
with
that
something that you
clear
said,
for the record. Thank you.
it's not needed, but thank you. Anyway, it is almost 1 o'clock. It would be nice if we could try to finish this before 1:15. I have hopes. Commissioner
Thank you, Mayor.
Villalobos.
To Commissioner Polanco's statement, yes, there has been several times where I would bring an item, and I have been told, hey, why don't you rethink it? You know, I understand your residents are considering it, they're pushing for it, and that's why I bring this stuff up. I don't care if they attack me. I don't care if they attack anybody. But the point is that there's information being sent out to the entire city, to the entire residents, to all the residents of the city. So that is city business, because commissioners on this dais are sending out misinformation to our residents. Is that not city business? When we vote on an item and then out of a sudden they twist the words that were being said on this commission, is that not city business? Is that not city's residents' right to know the truth versus the facts versus the evil misinformation that's been disseminated? Is that not city business? And I'm asking that question for someone to answer my question. City Attorney, is that not city business? When we're involving our residents, when we're sending out on behalf as a commissioner, Commissioner Elvin Villalobos is sending out misinformation, misleading information, not even putting all the facts in there and sending it out to all of our residents. Is that not our business to hold each other accountable?
You have, and I hate to sound like a broken record, you have rules of procedure. And in addition to that, you have a code of ethics, which each of you all have agreed, as I understand it, under the code, the way it's written, the way it gets processed, that you all have agreed to follow, that prohibits misinformation. So I think sometimes maybe it's the way moving forward, based upon this discussion, it's about how the issue potentially gets framed as an agenda item.
Okay. Yeah, because I have a problem when Commissioner Bolton sends my residents, my constituents, yes, everybody is from the city, but when information is sent to my district, and it's not factual, I have a problem with that. Because I don't think any of us would appreciate if I send an email about Commissioner Bolton and XYZ, Commissioner Placco, she was this, Mayor was that, Vice Mayor was this. I don't think any of us would appreciate it, so I don't appreciate that. And that's what I'm fighting for, because my residents are now confused as to what is true and what is not. So that is city business. And that's why I have brought up an item that twice I held back from a full-blown presentation which would have nailed Commissioner Bolton about Tamarac Post. Okay? So, because I have the facts. But I refuse because I do not want to play in the mud with you, Commissioner Bolton.
Okay, thank you. So basically, we have a commission policy in place that says we shall have access. We basically also have been heard many times before, if not some of us, a couple of us, or one of us, whatever it may be. We set policy. That is our job. The city manager, city attorney doesn't tell us what to do. We set policy. We've heard that in these chambers before. And so therefore, I find it a little laughable that now all of a sudden we're going to defer our authority to the city manager and city attorney without any real parameters. And as Commissioner Villalobos was just saying, where there could be some discrepancy on what is cause and what is not cause and what is relevant and not relevant. So, I think that before we do another thing without any teeth and without any direction and causing more issues and continue to be laughable because we just don't seem to control ourselves despite the numerous times that we say we will behave, I would recommend that we modify our ordinance to say that we submit our items for a workshop, and through that workshop, we can discuss as a commission and have a consensus of whether or not we have access to the agenda with that item. The only thing that I think the city manager and city attorney have been doing, and I think mostly it's actually the city manager, because the city manager controls the agenda, is looking to see whether or not we've put our backup in there. And if we say that there's supposed to be backup and we don't provide it, then the item doesn't come forward. And that's a procedural item, not a quality item. So that would be what I would think that we should do, is put this item, we can make it where we change it from shall have access to the agenda for the commission meeting to shall have access to the workshop for the commission to determine whether or not the item goes on a commission agenda for a vote. And at that time, we can also finish reviewing our rules and procedures yet again. Is there a question there, Commissioner Bolton?
Yes, Mayor. It's the same exact thing. We would be
No, it is not.
we would be discussing an item that the commission has no jurisdiction over. We'd be wasting taxpayers' time because they pay us. We cannot bring items that we have no jurisdictional authority over. If somebody has facts about a blog, they should bring it forward on Nextdoor or whatever it is. And maybe that commissioner would counter with text messages saying that they would fund the blog and pay for
Commissioner Bolton, this is not, item 10B is not as specific as you're making it to whether you want it only to be whether it's a blog. Item 10B is in general for having any items that the city commission brings forth.
it. It is 104, and I think the
You know what? It's very convenient that people decide to use the time when I'm asking questions so they don't have to bother with the answers. So you're the one who said you wanted to make sure that we finish these items, so we're going to finish the items. We're going to be respectful of that. So this is an item that you brought forward and you wanted us to discuss, and we're going to have that discussion. So item 10B is basically general comments of what the city commission brings forward. And in order to do this properly and procedurally and be able to have parameters for our city staff to be able to know whether it should go on the commission, we should then be fixing the problem, which would be the ordinance that we currently have. So the suggestion is to fix the ordinance by making it where we go to workshop and we can then discuss it then. And if the item is not ripe for us to bring forward, then it doesn't get put on an agenda. And then it also becomes mindful for us to make sure that we're not wasting our taxpayers' time.
Mayor, with all due respect, this section of the agenda is workshop. So it's already in workshop mode.
Understood, but it should be on a workshop instead with actual parameters for a workshop versus an agenda item during a commission meeting. We should go back to our procedures, but the problem is the commission does not have access to a workshop. Commission only has access to agenda meetings, agenda items, which is why we need to fix it.
We're saving the reputation of the city. If we go to a workshop, it's the same exact thing. We're discussing items that we don't have jurisdiction over, that is only embarrassing each other.
So in other words, Commissioner Bolton, then why don't we just remove any access to the agenda by the commission?
No, that would not be fair, and that would not be legal.
I just saw you actually just kind of stammer on that one. Shocking. The point of the matter is we currently have a code that says we have access, we shall, and it directs our city manager to put it on our agenda. It does not give them any wiggle room. It does not say if it's a relative item or not. Therefore, in order to fix it, we need to fix it in its entirety. So,
as a commissioner, as Vice Mayor Gellin would say, we set policy, and this is policy. We're setting this policy, and we're trying to say
you're deferring authority to the city manager and city attorney to do
temporarily. So
without parameters, because
so that we can get back to the business of this city and be professional again. So that attorneys does not have to sit in our audience for 5 hours to wait for a real item to come before us.
The sound bites are delicious. Unfortunately, they are not really helping move this forward. The reality is it is an ordinance change that has to be done.
And that is a different item in itself. This is not this item.
It is
My item
very much
is-
your item.
Point of order, Mayor. I think Commissioner Plaka wanted to say something.
Commissioner Placco, your light is lit. Go ahead.
I think taking this to a workshop defeats the purpose. Then we're airing our dirty laundry rather than at a commission meeting, we're doing it at a workshop. So in my mind, that defeats the purpose. I would like to think that we have confidence in our city manager and our city attorney that they will be able to guide us in the right direction, that this does not have cause, this should not be brought up at a commission meeting. It is a personal matter between 4 of us or 3 of us or 2 of us. And I'm willing to trust them for the time to see if that works. If it doesn't, we'll have to readdress it again. But I think we all agree we need to do something.
City Attorney, this is a legal question. We have an ordinance in place that says the policy that has been set forth by this commission, because it's been reiterated. Any person on the commission shall have access to the agenda for a commission meeting. There is no wiggle room in there. What is being asked is for us to just by consensus say to you, you decide if it's cause or not cause. That legally allowable?
As I understand it, what is being potentially directed to staff is a policy interpretation and how to apply this to that language in the code. My sincere and what I believe to be the proper way to ultimately do this is to amend the code. You cannot have a policy directive for a period of time that ultimately does not get codified. It will have to be codified at some point in time because we can't continue to, as staff, operate under a directive that is not ultimately put forward in writing in the form of either an ordinance amendment, a resolution, or some other document that reflects the direction being given to us tonight. We can treat it as what's called incipient policy, which allows us to do it while we draft the regulations to reflect the change that we're being directed, or the policy interpretation, the policy directive that we're being given here tonight.
So is that a very long way of saying, in order to effectuate this change, it needs to be done in the form of policy?
Ultimately, will have to be done in the form of an ordinance. Yes, ma'am.
So consensus here does not give the authority that is being sought.
I understand it that's, and if I'm incorrect, certainly correct. My understanding is that's what the direction that I would take if nothing changes. We will do it as an incipient policy, and we will, as staff, begin the process of reflecting that in a change to the code.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second to the motion?
Right after we vote.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, and that doesn't,
Second.
it does not require any further discussion. A motion to adjourn is one of those motions. If there's a second, it is heard. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Placco?
No.
Commissioner Bolton?
No.
Commissioner Villalobos?
Yes.
Commissioner Gellin?
No.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Let's wrap it up, please.
You have no stones.
Let's wrap it up, guys.
Finish
Let's wrap it up.
and be done with it.
Let's wrap it up.
If I may, attempt to summarize so we can move. My understanding is that the policy directive being given to staff is to when agenda items from individual commissioners are forwarded to the manager, that they are vetted for compliance or not compliance, vetted for consistency with, that they are appropriate to be placed on the agenda as business of the city, that pertains to business city. And we will communicate with the individual commissioner if there's a question or we need clarification. And in the meantime, we will begin the process of amending the code to reflect that change and to update the procedures of the commission accordingly.
Point of clarification, City Attorney, to what you just said. The request currently before us is for 180 days. It's till December. So we are now saying that we are going to have code rewritten, 2 hearings on the matter for 180 days in order to allow temporary authority to the city manager and city attorney to determine whether 6 days before a commission meeting the item is ripe for the agenda. Or are we now going to have to change timing in order to make sure there's enough time for review, discussion with the person who is putting it on the agenda, and then bringing it forth? It's a little more complex than just
I understand.
1, 2, 3.
And so that's why, let me clarify that. The 180 days is in my view, falls by the wayside. And ultimately it gets codified sooner rather than later to implement this policy directive.
So this has now been changed from a request for 180 days to have the city manager and city attorney determine whether or not the city commission, which currently has the authority for policy, to be told yes or no to put their items on the agenda.
To be codified in by an amendment to the code. An incipient policy has to either be codified in some form or fashion, or it ultimately falls by the wayside. You cannot have that type of policy directive on an interim basis. It has to be implementable by, as I said, some form of codification.
City manager, would you like to say something?
Well, I'm just offering this possibility that maybe the commission could agree not to put any items on in the next couple of meetings until the break or something, and then we could work it out a little bit more and bring it back. But we have 2 commission meetings between now and the break. We have a workshop, so
I support that.
I will too.
My understanding with the support of is that basically we're not continuing going forward on this. People will just not put anything on the agenda that will have any kind of issue, or we're not putting anything on the agenda for the next 2 meetings. What I'm
suggesting is that the commission refrain from adding items to the agenda for discussion until we can draft out what something like this would look like, so that we have some more
I have
direction.
access to the agenda. I shall put it when I feel like it.
That's also another item that is, we have access. The ordinance has not changed. There is no enforcement of it. And basically,
I'm withdrawing my item.
Item is withdrawn. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 1:16, so we made it a minute after my hopeful date time. Get home safely. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.